Welcome back, everyone. We are about to go over some things that have been revealed in the last couple of weeks that have to do with the weather and how it is that what we see in this world makes more sense with our biblical Earth model than it ever could on the sun god model that's moving nearly 500,000 miles per hour in a vacuum while rotating and doing all the things they say it's doing. And so we've already gone over a lot of things like the airplanes flying lower in Antarctica making more sense on the biblical Earth model, air pressure making more sense on the biblical Earth model because there's less air over your head in Antarctica, which means there's less air pressure in Antarctica. And when you look at a map, that's how it is. And we know that air pressure should be higher when the air is colder. But in Antarctica, in spite of being the coldest place in the world, it has the lowest air pressures in the world. So a lot of these things already making sense on the biblical Earth, but to further show you guys how it is that our Messiah and the prophets weren't lying when they were talking about certain things regarding the winds of this world and the corners of this earth. All the things they were talking about are about to make a lot more sense and show you that the Bible knew things that mankind didn't know until recent times. And so this takes us first, though, to Enoch. I know a lot of people don't like Enoch and they think it's bad or evil. I'm just telling you from my experience, it is a blessing. It's a missing piece to the puzzle that I think will further expand your understandings of these last days, what we're up against. And it's something that has really helped me make a lot more sense of the rest of scriptures. And so, for those of you who haven't read Enoch, it's basically he is getting a tour of creation right here. And part of that tour, he sees things at the ends of the earth. And so, right here, he says, "From thence I went towards the north to the ends of the earth, and there I saw a great and glorious device at the ends of the whole earth. And here I saw three portals of heaven open in the heaven." So essentially, three portals of heaven opening. Where are they at? What's heaven? Well, he called the firmament heaven. And so these portals are in the firmament. He's seeing them, and they are open in the firmament. And he says, "Through each of them proceed north winds. When they blow, there is cold, hail, frost, snow, dew, and rain. And out of one portal they blow for good, but when they blow through the other two portals, it is with violence and affliction on the earth, and they blow with violence. And from thence I went towards the west to the ends of the earth, and saw there three portals of the heaven open, such as I had seen in the east, the same number of portals, and the same number of outlets. And from thence I went to the south, to the ends of the earth, and saw three open portals of the heaven. And thence there came dew, rain, and wind." And so you're seeing these portals impacting the rains and the winds and all of the precipitations we have. And I thought when I first read this, that sounds very interesting. But we know how to predict the weather on the globe. We have all these devices and things measuring, Doppler radar, weather balloons being sent up all the time. Surely they would know about these things, right? Because this sounds like a big deal. Portals blowing from the ends of the earth. Well, when we look at weather on the globe model, they have a lot of stations set up near the ends of the earth. They have a lot of them at Antarctica, and they are surrounding the world. If you were to wrap it around the AE maps of the world, we have lots of them set up in place, measuring the winds that are blowing out of Antarctica. And where you see the south being different than the north, like it is, the highest winds in the world ever measured come from Antarctica, and they blow across New Zealand. And so the top two places for the fastest winds in the world, not tornadoes, this is just wind, over 150 miles per hour, it says, at Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, on a regular basis. The average annual wind speed there is 50 miles per hour. Talk about flying a kite there. My goodness, don't go kite surfing, you will disappear. So that's some fast wind. And in Wellington, New Zealand, very, very similar here. It says that the highest wind speed recorded in Wellington, New Zealand was 154 miles per hour. I wonder what the actual high speed over here was, because my notes show us that it's recorded at over that, and it has it in first place on the website that listed all the fastest speeds. And so I'm sure it was something they don't want you to see, probably closer to 160 if Wellington, New Zealand has 154. And it says here that the average wind speed in windy Wellington is 27 miles per hour, so almost half that of Antarctica. But when you look at world maps that show us the wind patterns of the world and the strength of these winds, look at the south and look at the north. There's a difference. Should be the same on the globe, but we can see a pattern of winds moving in a straight line from west to east and blowing out of Antarctica. Really strong red zones right here coming out of Antarctica, blowing towards these fastest winds ever recorded areas in the world right there. Commonwealth Bay, Antarctica, and in New Zealand. So you can see the winds already matching what Enoch was being shown with these winds blowing out of these portals in the heavens. And he only went to a few of the different cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. I know on our maps we have Antarctica just being in the south, but there's actually older maps that show things differently. Their understandings were unique, especially when you get back to just the 1500s. You don't have to go back very far to see that they had a different setup with their maps. They had the world at the center, things beyond, and they had them labeled west, north, east, and south when you go out there. I think that's fascinating. It wasn't just all south. They broke the world up into quarters, just like the Bible seems to. Talks about the four quarters or the four corners of the earth. You can hear that type of language. We're going to go over that as well. But even back in Babylon, the oldest world map ever, talks about seeing Noah's Ark on your journey going out towards these waters where you'll eventually meet a giant wall and you're going to see mountains. Same things that Enoch saw. And these maps are very similar to the Urbano maps. I mean, look at that. The spikes even add up right there. The nearest ones, there's some in the background, but look at that. Really, really cool how the oldest world map matches up a lot with modern day maps. And I say modern day, the 1500s is still kind of modern day compared to these old Babylonian maps where they were allegedly just really dumb and were just making stuff up on their maps, according to the people talking about these maps, saying that, oh yeah, that was the known world to them. And I think these guys, they saw and explored far further than we could ever imagine. The amount of resources they had, I mean, building the Tower of Babel, all the things that they did, knowing about the remains of the ark and writing about it on their tablets as if it's just common knowledge. If you go a certain direction, you're going to see the remains of the ark, and it's near a place, I think they called it Aratu, which is Ararat in their language. And so lots of cool things here with these old maps showing us they see things a little bit differently. And so a lot of our maps are for demonstration purposes only. We don't have everything 100% matched up with what it was, but we're going with what we have and following our compasses and using that to the best of our abilities. But essentially, to get back on track with the weather, you have the most powerful winds in Antarctica, but you also have temperature changes in Antarctica. And so when we look at the coldest places on Earth, it tells us that Antarctica is that place. I know that the Arctic and Antarctica should be very similar in temperature, but the Antarctic has a higher elevation overall, so it makes sense that it might be a little bit colder. But what is the difference overall? Well, the Arctic, when you go up north, has the coldest temperature ever recorded there being at around negative 69.6 degrees Celsius or negative 93.3 degrees Fahrenheit. And that was back in 1991 when they measured that in December. Then you have the hottest recorded temperature in the Arctic being 38 degrees Celsius or 100.4 degrees Fahrenheit. We're in triple digits in the Arctic. Now let's look at Antarctica. The coldest temperature ever recorded there was negative 89.2 degrees Celsius or negative 128.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Triple digits again. This time we are well into the triple digits there, but it's the negative side. And that was back in 1983, a good year, the year I was born. Actually, that was not long after I was born, just a few days. And so the hottest temperature ever recorded in Antarctica was 18.3 degrees Celsius, or 64.9 degrees Fahrenheit. Not anywhere near 100 degrees like you saw in the Arctic. And so essentially, you have Antarctica winning the prize for the coldest award by 35.3 degrees Fahrenheit, and the Arctic wins the warmer contest by 35.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a big difference. They should be very similar, but they're not. On both extremes, they're about the same amount off. And so we're seeing weather in the south being different, just like air pressure is different, just like flights are different. So many things different in the south. And when I try to find imagery of this coldest place, where is it? Well, NASA brings you a place called Dome A. We've looked at this before. There's a lot of weird things going on there. There's a lot of places called Dome in Antarctica. It's one of the only places in the world where you probably are going to find places named Dome. And they have, their reasons saying, oh, it has to do with the topography. But you look at pictures of these places and they're as flat as can be. I would never look at this place and go, I think we should call this place Dome. And it's the coldest place in the world. No, this place should be named after something that has to do with cold weather, possibly even the wind, but they're naming it Dome, and it's for a reason, because they're probably getting closer to that dome firmament structure. The ends of the earth that Enoch saw, I don't know how far out it is, but when we look at other aspects of weather like hurricanes, my thought was how far north and how far south do they travel? Because I live in the northern hemisphere and I hear about hurricanes all the time, and they can travel pretty far north. We can watch them on the map. However, I rarely ever watch weather radar for the south because I don't live there. But when you pull up a world map of storms from 1985 to 2005, you can see the ones up north are more prevalent, which is weird. You would think with those portals being down here, they would be more in the south, but there's a reason this is happening. You got those cold fronts because when the sun is further away from the north, it's going to be colder. So you have a lot of cold weather. You also have those portals up in the firmament of the heaven blowing downwards and blowing things from the ends of the earth. And so if there were storms forming with those cold and warm fronts meeting, guess what? They can't go back south very far because that's where the winds are coming from. Wherever they form, they're not going to get pushed back towards the origin of these portals. And so the ones up north can get pushed further north. How much further north? Well, check this out. As far as 600 miles from the North Pole. That's how far a hurricane has traveled and still kept its form. In the south, of course, it's way different. 4,330 miles from the South Pole is the closest they have made it before losing their form. So 600 compared to 4,330 miles is quite the change. It should be similar on the globe. It's not similar because we're not on a globe. And this understanding is going to make things in the Bible make a lot more sense. Verses like this, coming from the book of Matthew, our beloved Messiah saying, And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Revelation using the same language. And after these things, I saw four angels. You're going to need four of them because there's going to be four portals standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. Why did they have to go to the ends of the earth? Because there's portals there like the ones mentioned in Enoch. And they're calling them the four winds. What's interesting about that is the four winds were not discovered until the 1920s. We now call them the four jet streams that blow over our world. Four of them, just like the Messiah was talking about. He knew creation better than anyone at that time and at this time. And he's speaking of the four winds. And that's not the only thing the Bible talks about that mentions these portals. You see all throughout the Word, Deuteronomy all the way to Revelation. And here in Deuteronomy chapter 11, it says, And then the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heaven. Why would he have to shut up the firmament to stop rain? Couldn't he just hold the clouds back? No, he had to shut up the heaven, that there be no rain. When you understand what Enoch was being shown, this makes a lot more sense. And here it is again. When heaven is shut up and there is no rain. It's Weird. They can shut up heaven to stop the rain. And here it says, when the heaven is shut up in Second Chronicles, and there is no rain, this was a punishment because they had sinned, of course. You see this again, Second Chronicles later on, another chapter down. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, the Most High talking about his creation, shutting up the heaven so that there's no rain. I used to think he was like somehow putting up a block that stopped the clouds from moving. I don't know. My visuals of how this worked back in the day were very off because I didn't know about these things. And then in Luke, this is our Messiah. What is he saying in the start of this sentence here? But I tell you of a truth. He's not making this up. Many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah or Elias, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, when great famine was throughout all the land. 3.5 years, one of those portals being shut up, possibly more of them, preventing that rain from falling the way that it does by his intelligent design. And then in Revelation, we see this happening again with the witnesses. It says here, these have power to shut heaven that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. So you're seeing a mix here of the things that happened with Elijah and with Exodus happening in the last days with these two witnesses, shutting up heaven. People are going to be confused. How is this happening? That's how. They can close those portals that are blowing the winds and the rain, all these things from the south, things that we now can see on world maps being measured. The highest winds coming from Antarctica. Makes perfect sense. And not only that, doesn't stop with the wind. Let's look at the water currents. What else was Enoch being shown that we need to look at? He was being shown 7 high mountains out there, he says, that were higher than all the mountains which are on the earth. So there's mountains higher than Mount Everest, guys. And thence comes forth hoarfrost, and days, seasons, and years pass away. I saw 7 rivers on the earth, larger than all the rivers. One of them coming from the west pours its water into the great sea. What would that look like? Well, you would have water in the south going the same direction. That's what it does on our biblical earth. It goes in the same direction, adding to that miraculous water cycle that keeps the oceans pure, everything in motion. It's beautiful, it's spectacular, and it makes sense on the biblical earth. So many things do, even the direction of the storms with our magnetic properties of what's above us. We've seen how there's magnetic properties to creation. You could take a compass and walk outside and see there is a North Pole magnetic phenomenon. It's not something that's a conspiracy. And when you put a North Pole magnet in water, it makes it swirl counterclockwise. Do the same thing with the South Pole of a magnet, it's going to make water swirl clockwise. And so you can see this stuff affecting water. We know, based on what we've talked about in the past, with water and its diamagnetic properties, it's going to do some unique things when exposed to a magnet. Everything in creation is impacted by a magnet. And so lots of really cool science behind weather. They are studying this stuff all the time. They have meteorologists that can predict weather way in advance. And I believe it's thanks to the help from those stations set up all around Antarctica. And now we can understand why those 4 winds of heaven are mentioned when it comes to the resurrection. They are still going to be in existence after the heavens part like a scroll because they're at the ends of the earth. Really powerful stuff here. I know that you all most likely already knew a lot of this stuff, but I feel like it's important that we share these things that help show the world that the South is different than the North for a reason, and it's because there's a barrier up above us. Any anomalies that happen with the sun, the moon, and the stars are related to those lights being up in the firmament of the heaven that were put there by our Father on day 4 of creation. After he had already spent an entire day on day 2 making the firmament, he needed a place to put those lights, and that's where he put them. They are in the firmament of the heaven. We can't go and land on them and do all the things that they claim we've already done. These are obvious deceptions, and so it's good to have so many of you sharing the proofs of the deception as well as the proofs of the truth of creation. It's powerful stuff. And so if you want to help undo the indoctrination that maybe you or a loved one has been exposed to, I highly recommend checking out Creation Standard. It's something that has been a great blessing and is why we're seeing a lot of these things right now that have to do with weather, going and comparing worldly wisdom to the Father's wisdom, and it's powerful. So far, we have been on a path that is showing us the world is not telling the truth and that things make more sense on the biblical earth. So if you want more information, go to our website, creationstandard.com. You can see this current semester, how it's lined up, and you can join us next time. Of course, you can still join now. You'd be joining late in the game. We have about 7 weeks left after our break with this experience, but you guys feel free to send us an email if you want information. We can get you registered or at least on an email list for now so that we can send you updates along the way. We plan on starting in September with our first semester of our second year of Creation Standard. It has been a great blessing. We have the best students and parents in the world. And I'm saying that humbly. I'm not saying that to brag on anything we've done. The Father has sent the best this direction. It's an answer to a prayer. And seeing what He is doing with His inheritance and His children, the foundation He's building and putting together, it's powerful. It's changing my life, and it lets me see how real this battle is. And hopefully, the children involved can see how real this battle is. And we're not just telling them to believe things on faith like a lot of people think. We are having them put this stuff to the test. And it's a life changing journey. It's one that's already changed my life for the better. And so, if you're interested in it or want to support it, check out the links in the comment I'm going to try to pin as well as in the description that will help you find the information you need because it's definitely a blessing. And I want everyone who is interested in that to experience that. Even if you don't have children, if you just want to learn, you can check out our higher level classes. And so you can follow along that way and get this information in a more educational format as well as some fun fellowship with other true soldiers out there in the world. And so that's it. That's all I wanted to share. I'll be back with some more. There's always more things we want to share. We just don't have the time, but I wanted to share that because it is powerful stuff. And it shows us just how much truth is in the Word if we actually know what the world is like.